All right, everybody. We have an interesting video for you. It's not a Stadia story, but it is an industry story. We love cloud gaming here at the Stadia Cast. We obviously are covering Stadia, which is, in our opinion, the best cloud service right now. But there's other services that are happening, and there's a huge development that happened today on the Xbox side of things, which is really going to change things. So my name is Lloyd Hannison from Stadia Cast. I'm with Bill today. Bill, how the heck are you, Bill?
I'm doing great, man. You just got done with work, and we were like, man, we got to talk about this, don't we?
We do. We definitely have to talk about this because this is huge, and this is probably going to change some things. Maybe not so much at Stadia, but maybe Nintendo, maybe PlayStation, maybe other industry players will have some changes to make because Microsoft just started talking about you are the future of gaming in a press release, or more so a blog post that happened today on the official news.xbox.com weblog.
Yeah, I really like their choice of words here because this
Mm-hmm.
this feels like a direct shot across the bow for Sony, because Sony was like, the future of gaming. This is the future of gaming. PlayStation is the future of gaming, and Microsoft is like, you know what? Let's make it about the players instead. You're the future of gaming. I think that's really really smart. The marketing department, they're on top of things over there.
They are. They are. They definitely are. So the blog post that they put out, it's pretty long. They cover a lot of stuff. They're basically coming right out and saying that the future is yours. We are doing everything in our power as Xbox to make the next generation of gaming better for you in a number of different ways. They start off with "You will always be welcome. We are building Xbox for you, players from all walks of life everywhere in the world. We want to make your Xbox community safe, accessible, and welcoming." So that's obviously in relation to a lot of the industry stuff that is going on right now. But then they get into the more technological thing, and you can jump back to the other one if you want after this. But they come out with a simple statement: your games will look and play best on Xbox Series X.
Yeah, it absolutely. I like that they are saying this. That's great. I personally like that. Doesn't appeal to me. It's not like I'm like, oh no, I don't want my games to look good. But sure, maybe they'll look best on Xbox Series X. But really, how much of a difference is it going to be when you're looking at the
Sure.
Xbox or the PlayStation? So for me, I get that they're saying this, and they said this about Xbox One as well. They
Mhm.
said the most powerful whatever. So, that part I think is interesting,
Mhm.
but less interesting than the other stuff that they talked about.
Exactly. But I think there is a large segment of the population that only cares about numbers.
Yeah.
It's like they're playing Diablo, and they want every time they pull their bow to have a bigger number appear above the enemy's head.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they want with their consoles. And for Xbox to come right out, well, I guess secondly, at first they said we're making Xbox for everybody, not just the hardcore. But then saying that your games will look and play best with things like a 12 teraflops of GPU, 15 Xbox Studios, dynamic living worlds, realistic AI, and 120 frames per second. They're basically hitting all kind of the buzzwords. Obviously, a lot of those games won't appear at launch, but it's really cool for Microsoft to come out and say, "Yep, no, all those numbers, people, we got you." But let's get into some other things, which are probably less exciting for the numbers people, except for I guess maybe the streaming stuff, which we'll get to.
Yeah, well, I mean, let me take just a second and say they're talking about frame rates, including support for up to 120 frames per second. Again, very cool.
Hmm.
The more frame rate is always better. I mean,
Hmm.
if you say, "Hey, Bill, I'm going to give you the option of playing this game at 60 frames per second or playing it at 120, well, actually, let me rephrase that: 60 or 30." I'm going to pick 60.
Hmm.
Now, when they say 120 frames per second, like how many people out there have a TV that
Hmm.
does 120 frames per second? Like that's got to be pretty rare, wouldn't you think,
You
Lloyd?
Oh, guaranteed, guaranteed. There's going to be few 4K 120 hertz sets out there, but this is the start of a new generation. The last one lasted what, 6 years?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
maybe by year four, every TV that you buy at the grocery store on tax-free Fridays will have those specs, because they'll just be that'll be the default that comes with all new equipment in the future.
Yeah, and then they go on to talk about other things that I think are more impressive, like the fact that they are eliminating load times with their 40 times boost with their I/O
Mhm,
throughput over last generation because they're using SSD. Sony has
mhm.
made a huge deal about SSD. I know people are watching this and they're like, "When are you going to talk about Stadia?" We're going to get there. We promise. Stick around for the whole video. Um, but then they're talking about the Xbox Velocity architecture, which
Mhm.
basically says that everything in the games are improved. The game worlds are larger, they're more dynamic, they load really, really fast. Fast travel is very, very fast, which all
Yep.
sounds really good. And it makes me feel like, oh, they are really pushing us towards you gotta buy an Xbox Series X. But then they kind of don't go with along with that. Like they're saying this is why the Xbox Series X is the best,
Yep.
but you don't have to buy it. You want to talk about
It's,
that?
oh, totally. Well, first they say play your new games day one with Xbox Game Pass. We already know that
Mm-hmm.
Microsoft owns a pile of game studios. They released a bunch of games. Day one, you get to download them and play them for free if you are a Games Pass member. Free in quotes, because you're paying for Games Pass, but you don't
Yeah.
have to pay $60 for Minecraft or Halo or the next Forza or Microsoft Flight Simulator that is coming out, The Outer Worlds, a bunch of games like that. You just get them for free, which is great. And then they say you won't be forced into the next generation. We want every Xbox player to play all the new games from Xbox Studios. That's why Xbox Game Studios titles we release in the next couple of years, like Halo Infinite, will be available and play great on Xbox Series X and Xbox One. We won't force you to upgrade to Series X at launch to play Xbox exclusives, which is a stark comparison to what Sony's messaging is, which is basically, if you want the latest and greatest, you're gonna get the PlayStation 5. All of our PlayStation 5 games will be fantastic, but your PlayStation 4 is just kind of, it's just going to sit there. And then Xbox goes a little bit further to say your games will not be left behind. Thanks to backwards compatibility, you'll be able to play 4 generations of games on Xbox Series X on day one. So every game from Xbox, the original Xbox, Xbox 360, Xbox One, and Xbox Series X will be playable on the Series X at launch, which is again a stark comparison to Sony when they said that we're going to have about the top 100 games or
Mm-hmm.
so from PlayStation 4 will be playable in backwards compatibility. So Microsoft is really firing with both barrels right now, saying, come to Xbox. Look at all the stuff you get. You don't have to buy the newest one. You can buy the current one. You can buy a game. Don't worry. In the future, you'll be able to play it on the next gen stuff. You'll be able to get a Series X in 2 years, and all your games will look better. Plus, every single game that you've bought from a used game store for Xbox, Xbox 360, and Xbox One will be playable on your new box. Nintendo is previously known as kind of like the king of backwards compatibility for most of the console generation, recent console
With the
generations.
handhelds,
With the handhelds,
right?
and then with when the Wii U came out, it could play Wii games and stuff like that. So they've dabbled that way,
Mm-hmm.
and Sony and Microsoft have done that as well. But this is Microsoft coming out and saying that we're going to be number one for backwards compatibility, because everything will be playable day one on the Xbox Series X.
I feel like so first off, I'm gonna you kind of ended on the backwards compatibility, so I want to talk about that, but then I want to go back to the next gen, like not forcing people in a second.
Sure.
Um, so first off, the backwards compatibility I think is a huge selling point. You know,
Hmm.
there's a lot of people out there who have a library of games, and because of the backwards compatibility, what people are going to be able to do is unhook their Xbox, hook up their new Xbox, and it'll still play all of the old games. So then they don't have to hold on to that that system. Now, I don't know if this means that the digital games will also work. I would assume that they would.
I would
So if you
assume
bought
so.
a game digitally, then hopefully that also transfers forward. Or if they're just
Hmm.
talking about discs, it wouldn't make sense to me if they didn't. But the gaming industry does things that don't make sense. That doesn't make sense to me quite often.
Sure, sure.
And as
Yeah.
as as much as backwards compatibility is a good selling point, I think a lot of people get excited about it and then never take advantage of it. So I'm all for them including it, but
Mhm.
I think that that's kind of a wash, at least for me. Go ahead.
For yeah, for you, but potentially you're that consumer. There's a lot of consumers that love to play their old games over and over, but there's also the consumers that love this specific Call of Duty, and they fire it
Yeah.
up once a month to get on with their best friends. So they keep their old consoles sticking around so they could get on and play that one specific game. Now they
Hmm.
can use their Xbox One as trade-in value for the Xbox Series X and not worry about losing anything. With the way Xbox works is all your save games are in the cloud automatically. You don't have to think about it. It just happens. When you download a game, it downloads your save just in the background. You don't have to think about it. So today you go to the store with your Xbox One and say, I would like to trade this in. You get your $100 or whatever you get for it. You put that $100 on your Series X. You bring your Series X home. You plug it in, and then you install Gears of War 4 because you were playing that like this morning. Your save game comes over and you can play the game. That is a pretty amazing future, very much what PCs have been forever,
Oh
where
yeah.
you just upgrade a component of your PC to make your game look better. It doesn't mean that every other game that you bought just disappears and isn't usable anymore.
And it feels like that's what Xbox is going after. They're going after, I mean, obviously they're taking a shot at Sony, but it feels like they're also trying to go after the PC market, which by and large is very complicated. If you want to be a PC gamer, you have a big pocketbook. Obviously, you
Hmm.
you want to spend a lot of money on the hardware, and you need to know about all of the things in order to make sure that you have the best experience. Like you gotta know what MIP mapping is and that kind of stuff. And so you're like, what, do I turn this off? Do I turn this on? All right, I've got 60 frames per second after messing with my settings for 30 minutes or whatever. Now I'm ready to
Right.
play. And Xbox is trying to take that PC experience and take all of that stuff about being complex and just making it simple. The Xbox Series, not the Series X, but the Xbox console lineup, the Xbox One S, the Xbox One X, the original Xbox One, and now the Series X, they're all basically the same system, just with more powerful hardware. And I think that that's
Exactly.
really, really good. And now the next part where they're like, you won't be forced into the next generation. I think that
Hmm.
that's probably the thing that gets me more interested in buying an Xbox than I have been in years. I don't have a current gen Xbox. I had an Xbox 360. I had a Red Ring of Death. I got rid of it, and I ended up going PlayStation this time around, which I really regret. Not because of that the PlayStation's bad, but because Sony did a lot of anti-consumer things this generation. So
Right.
Microsoft seems to be leaning very heavily on, hey, we're trying to be pro consumer. We're trying to make
Hmm.
your life better. It's not just about our games are going to look best on our system, which they say at the beginning, but they're also saying we're not trying to force you to buy stuff in order to play the best game, which if you've heard us talk about Stadia, then you've heard us say over and over, that's one of
Yep.
the things is that I don't have to keep upgrading in order to play games. Now, of course, after a couple of years, they're going to start making games that are exclusive to the Xbox Series X that won't run on the Xbox One. And keep in mind that this stuff where you're not forced to upgrade for the next generation, that's only for
Mhm.
first party stuff. So a third
That's
party
right.
publisher or developer can make a game that won't run on the Xbox One but will run on the Xbox Series X, and in
Exactly.
that case you will need to upgrade.
That's right. Exactly. So, I mean, it's really great for Xbox and their 15 studios that are releasing first party titles.
Hmm.
What it means is that everyone that is playing Xbox today has 2 years to upgrade to the next gen stuff before they start losing content, which is not the standard way consoles come out. There's always this huge exclusive that gets you to buy your $500 box and your $60 game on day one. You're dropping a whole huge ton of cash. Now it's like, okay, Halo Infinite comes out, you can play it, but if you want it to look best, you just go buy this new piece of hardware. You don't have to, but it's here for those people that want it. That is a great consumer friendly way of changing the games industry, and I'm I'm a super fan of that. And then they get into you can buy games once at no added cost. Microsoft has been plugging away at their smart delivery technology, a buzzword, for a while now, where you basically buy a game on Xbox One and then you go to play it on an Xbox Series X and it gets upgraded because the developers have patched it to look better on the Xbox Series X. Of course, that takes work from the developers. So not every game is going to do that, but any Microsoft Studios game, say the next Halo Infinite or the next Gears of War or the next Forza or the next whatever, you can play it on Xbox One, and then you buy Series X, you put it in. Next thing you know, it's 4K. It has amazing lighting because of all of the dynamic shaders and the new light mapping stuff and all the buzzword stuff that they're talking about, ray tracing, all that other stuff. It's going to look amazing, but you don't have to buy it again. That happened from the switch from last generation when you went from PlayStation 3 to PlayStation 4. Companies were charging the last year of PlayStation 3. There was a bunch of, if you want to play online, you need to punch in this code, and then you move over to the PlayStation 4, and all of a sudden, well, you have to pay $10 if you want to play this game on PlayStation 4. There was always like these little caveats where we're doing it, but you're gonna pay for it. Now Xbox is saying no, it's just gonna happen, and we want every single piece of software that is going to be upgraded for Series X to be a free upgrade for all the consumers.
Now, keep in mind that does not necessarily mean that every single developer or publisher will abide by that. I believe it was EA that was kind of being a little non-committal about Madden, right? Am I right about that?
Yeah, and then I think Microsoft came out and had a press release, and then EA corrected that, saying, "Yeah, no, we're doing smart delivery on Xbox Series X." So I don't know if maybe there was some sort of agreement for in the publishing where if you release the same game on both generations, it has to be a free upgrade for the user. Maybe there was something in the background there. There was something behind the scenes. We're not really sure what was happening there.
I hope that Microsoft. I hope that they get really, really tight-fisted about stuff like this,
Yeah.
about pro-consumer stuff. And, you know, I'm going to refer to Apple. Apple does a lot of things that people don't like, but it also makes it for a pretty good experience when you are using their stuff. And I like that's one of the reasons why I stopped using Android a while back, was because back when I had a Galaxy Note 2, um, Google did not have like the death grip on
Yeah.
the manufacturers and the 4G, or probably 3G at the time, providers, and that caused me to not be able to upgrade my phone to the newest operating system, which ticked me off.
Right.
And Apple is always like, no, screw you. We made the software. We're going to update it if we want. Verizon doesn't get to decide what happens. And I hope that Microsoft has that kind of stuff in their contract to say, no, EA doesn't get to make that decision. If they want to publish on our platform, they're going to do what we say. And I like that. And some
Definitely.
people might say, well, I don't like that they're being too harsh. But if it's for pro consumer thing, then I'm all for it.
100%.
Yeah. So, you know, this again has a parallel with Stadia, where, you know, maybe in a couple of years Stadia updates their hardware or does something that changes, and suddenly our games start looking even better or running at higher frame rates. Like, I'll say the one that I'm hoping for most out of everything is Borderlands 3. You know, when I play Borderlands 3, that's at 4K 30 frames per second or 1080p 60 frames per second. And it would be really nice if maybe the Gen 2 Stadia stuff came out and they were like, oh, by the way, Borderlands 3 now runs at 4K 60. just
Right.
kind of an upgrade. And this is the same thing that Microsoft is doing. So that's another parallel with Stadia, where they're like, okay, we've got new hardware, your games are going to come forward, which is really cool and makes them run better. Now, does that work for old games? Not necessarily. They
Mhm.
did say stuff about backwards compatibility earlier, where they were like that the developers didn't have to do anything because they're emulating, but I don't think that that's going to suddenly make things run at 4K or higher frame rate. It's just going to emulate older stuff. Am I right about that?
Well, some of it will be 4K, some of it will have higher frame rate, some of it will even be ray trace. They were showing Fusion Frenzy, I think
Oh,
it
that's
was, which
right.
was I believe a launch Xbox title, and there was ray tracing in every light source in the game just by using whatever emulator they're using to emulate that hardware running on Series X. So who knows, maybe and maybe there's a little bit of tweaks that the developer could do if they're like, well, I want this game to look even better. They can give new textures or whatever, which will just download if you're playing it on a Series X when you download the game. So there's a lot of unknowns, but at least every game will look as good as it did back in the day at running on a modern TV, stretched to 4K. But then we might get some additional functionality as well, which is fantastic.
Yeah, this is what they actually said for a quote. They said, our backwards compatibility engineers have spent years devising innovative ways for modern, next gen technology to make the games library you're building today even better at no additional cost and with no work from the developers. So it
Hmm.
seems like the developers don't have to do anything. And I think that
Exactly.
that's really cool.
Yep.
Because, a lot of developers are going to say, well, I mean, that's an old game. I don't have the resources to go back and update it. All
Or
right,
the
what's
devs aren't even around anymore because it's been 15 years since they published that game.
That's true. Like a lot of these developers are gone. Like they've gone out of
Yeah.
business or they've been purchased by somebody
Yeah.
else. That's a
Or they
really
have
good point.
or they have licensed content, so they by legal standpoint they can't actually republish another version of it. If it's like a Marvel game or a Lord of the Rings game or something, they can't issue a patch to make it look better because they can't touch that IP anymore. So all that stuff will just come across, and that was the issue the last gen with backwards compatibility. The Xbox One said no, we're not doing that, and then all of a sudden PlayStation was doing it so well, and they're like, oh crap, we got to do it. And they were basically having developers recode part of their game
Hmm.
into this loader to then allow it to go over. They wrote a piece of software that basically interpreted the calls that were supposed to go to 360, made them into Xbox DirectX calls, and did it that way. But the developers had to actually touch those games. This is just going to happen from an emulator that is going to run at the hardware level. Developers don't have to touch it. They can if they want it to look better, but they don't have to, which is going to be huge.
Yeah. So far, everything that we've talked about is not new information. We've known about all of this stuff, and so people are like, "Good God, what are you guys talking about this for?" Well,
Yeah.
because we're excited about the gaming industry. But let's talk about the new information that came out. You want to tell everybody about that?
All right, so let's bring this back into cloud gaming.
Yeah.
So this is a Stadia channel. We love Stadia. We love cloud gaming. We've also been messing around with Project xCloud, which is Microsoft's streaming service. You can get it on your phone. I have it on my iPhone right now. You can play one game on your iPhone, which isn't the best, but I'm also doing it on my Android tablet. And my son was playing Forza for a bunch of hours one night, and he loved it. So it works really well at a lower resolution. Well, Microsoft is coming out today and saying that you will get more from your Xbox Game Pass Ultimate membership. So, Game Pass Ultimate is the replacement for Games Pass, or I guess an addition to Games Pass. So there was Xbox Live Gold, which allows you to play online and do all that fun stuff. Then there was Game Pass, which gave you Xbox games as a monthly fee. You get access to a library of 100. And then they had Games Pass Ultimate, which pays for Xbox Live and Game Pass rolled into one, and it gets you the ability to play these Microsoft Xbox games on PC and on the Xbox hardware.
Hmm.
Well, now you're going to get more from it because cloud gaming is now going to be bundled into Xbox Game Pass Ultimate. So for $15 a month for Games Pass Ultimate, you get the ability to play online. You get the ability to play Xbox games that are part of the part of the service, so 100-ish games. You get to play PC games on your PC that are part of the service. I think it's more like 60-ish games that are on PC, and you get to play all of the other games that you want as xCloud, where you're basically playing a cloud-based Xbox for all these games as well if you don't want to download them. Um, this is ridiculous. This is they're basically giving you a free console now for $15 a month to play these games. Um, that is going to be hard for companies to compete with. That's going to be hard for PlayStation to compete with. That's had a cloud streaming service, cloud gaming service forever. It's terrible. It's 720p. They need to make it a better service, but now they're going to have to make it a better service and not get any extra money for it, which is going to be a bit of a shock to the shareholders if Sony comes out and says we're gonna make the best cloud gaming service and it's going to be free with PlayStation Plus. That's going to be hard, a tough pill to swallow, we'll say. So this is a huge shot across the bow of every platform holder right now, and yeah, and it's amazing that it's coming from Microsoft, which was the most restricted, and you're going to do what we say and you're going to like it, or you're going to go elsewhere company at the start of the last generation.
Yeah, so here's the actual quote. They said, finally today, we're announcing that this September, in supported countries, we're bringing Xbox Game Pass and Project xCloud together at no additional cost for Xbox Game Pass Ultimate. With cloud gaming in Game Pass Ultimate, you will be able to play over 100 Xbox Game Pass titles on your phone or tablet. So at this point, cue all of the people who are going to say, see, Xbox is Xbox or xCloud or whatever they decide to call it, because it's not going to be called xCloud, they've said.
Right.
xCloud is better than Stadia. What do you think about that? Because that's what people are going to say based on this. What do you think, Lloyd?
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, if the future, basically what Games Pass does now, or sorry, xCloud does now, is if you have a game on your console, you can play that game through the internet, because it's running on your console and streamed to you. This isn't that. This that might be included, but they're not including it here. But what they're saying is that if you want to play any of the Games Pass games, you just pay for a Games Pass Ultimate membership on your phone, and you can play it that way. That is 100 games, though. It doesn't mean that you can go out and buy whatever the next Batman game that comes out and play it that way. That just means that you get the Games Pass titles. You get access to 100 for $15 a month, which is a pretty darn good deal. But it's not the same as what xCloud Beta was, where you could play other games that way as well.
So if there's a new game on, we'll say Xbox, Xbox One X, right? There's a new game
Mm-hmm.
that just came out for Xbox One. I won't be
Mm-hmm.
able to play that unless it's part of xCloud.
Unless it's part of Games Pass.
Right, that's what I meant to say. Unless it's
Yeah.
part of Games Pass.
They the current xCloud beta means that I could buy a game. So I have Jedi Fallen Order here because that's the only physical title that I have for my Xbox. So that's why I always show it off, not because I really love it. I could take this and I could put it in my Xbox One right now, and I could start the app on my Android phone, and I could play this game running on my hardware across the internet to my
Right.
phone. So possibly that'll be supported in the future. This announcement doesn't reference that at all, so we don't know if that's going to be part of the service anymore. Maybe they realized that they that this was not a good place to devote any of their time. That really what they want is to have game servers in the cloud that can play the Games Pass titles and sell people on various other platforms $15 a month access to it. To me, that's what this statement says. My hope is that when this comes out in September, you're just going to get all that other stuff anyway. You're going to get the access to the PC app, so you don't need to use it on a phone or tablet. You can play those games on your PC at $15 a month. And also, if you have an Xbox Series X or an Xbox One, any game that's sitting on that system, you'll be able to play it as well on your PC, on your phone, or on your tablet as well. But this statement doesn't say that. It's part of it now in the beta. Who knows if it's going to be in the full release?
I can't imagine them removing it. Although for me, I think that
Yeah.
it's probably not the best experience for most people, because that depends on you having a very good upload speed at your house in order to pull that off. And most people don't have a very good upload speed at their house because of the
That's
way
right.
that it's set up, at least here in the States. Um,
Yeah, it's only 720p, I believe, when it's streaming from your console.
right.
So you don't need a very high upload or upstream bandwidth. But yeah, it wouldn't be the best the best performance by any stretch.
So what they ended up saying here is that cloud gaming on Xbox Game Pass Ultimate means that your games are no longer locked to the living room. You can
Yep.
connect more than ever with friends and family through gaming, and just like you do with your movie and music streaming services, when cloud gaming launches on Xbox Game Pass Ultimate, you can continue to game wherever you left off on any device, which is
Yep.
one of the things that I always say is one of my
Mhm.
favorite things about Google Stadia is the fact that I
Yep.
can play on any screen. I can go and play on the TV. I can play here at my computer. I can play on the TV downstairs.
Yeah.
I'm not locked in this room to play a game on Stadia. That's one of my favorite things. And they're saying
Mhm.
this is basically the same thing, except you can't play on PC yet. And so it's
Right.
really so that you can play your games on your phone when you're away from your house, which is
That's right.
fine. I don't think that
Yep.
that's a bad thing, but it's definitely a differentiator between what Stadia is and whatever xCloud is going to be called. Yeah, maybe they'll just continue to call it part of Game Pass Ultimate. So
Yeah,
that's
just
like a
cloud
big
gaming.
difference there.
Yeah, they reference it as cloud gaming multiple times, so maybe that's just the generic term they chose. After that one paragraph you read, they say when you add it all up, Xbox Series X is not or is the only next generation console that lets you play any new blockbuster games with the highest console fidelity. Enjoy the latest blockbuster games the day they launch for one monthly price. Play 4 generations of your games at higher fidelity than ever before, and play with friends wherever you are, whenever you want across TV, PC, and mobile device. So maybe cloud gaming will come to the PC as part of this in the future, but they don't directly reference it.
Yeah, the other thing. Okay, so now let's make a comparison between Stadia and Xbox Game Pass Ultimate.
Sure.
When I
So
look at Xbox, I still feel like they have one foot in the hardware space, and
mhm,
they have to make sure that that hardware is what they are working on. And the only way that I can see them really doing what Stadia is doing is if they sell and if they put an app on the Xbox Series S, or not Series S, the Xbox One S, that
mhm,
allows you to use xCloud games to play a game on an Xbox Series X, if that makes
right.
sense. Like
Mhm.
then you've done the same thing that Google is doing, in my opinion. But until they do that, it's still just running on a piece of hardware that you could go out and buy, which means it
Mhm.
has to be limited in some way. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, possibly. They've also talked about the fact that they're working on server hardware that has the guts of Xbox hardware. So that will be very much like what Google's doing with their Stadia Blades, where it's a specific piece of hardware. They're currently running Xbox One hardware. They want them to upgrade to Series X by the end of the year. So in the future, what I see happening is you could possibly just pay $15 a month to Microsoft, pay $10 a month to Google, access all of the Google first party games for free if Google decides to do that, access all of the Microsoft first party games for free, access a pile of other games on Games Pass. Currently on Stadia Pro, you get 22 games, I think, is part of Pro. So you get, maybe by the time that this comes out, that'll ratchet up a little bit. But for $25 a month, you could potentially get access to every first party game from 2 different companies and get a bunch of other games for just a low price, play it on your phone, play it on your tablet, hopefully play it on your PC. And this could be a really cool future for people that don't want to buy $600 pieces of hardware. Now you just buy an Xbox controller, a Stadia controller, something on your TV like a Chromecast or something else if you want to play the games on TV. Microsoft doesn't say that that's going to be allowed for those games, so you might have to do it on your PC. But you could potentially play a bulk of all the next gen exclusives obviously not Sony's, without ever buying console hardware, which to me is just crazy speak. If you would have said this 5 years ago that you're going to be able to play every Xbox exclusive without buying an Xbox, I would have laughed. But then I would also said, oh yeah, Microsoft doesn't have exclusives because they had no studios working for them at the time. That has changed. So this is pretty awesome, man. $25 a month to get access to all this content is pretty awesome.
So do us a favor. In the comment section down below, I want to know if this convinces you guys to try out Games Pass Ultimate, or to try it, or if you already have Games Pass Ultimate, does this mean that you are now interested in xCloud? I would say for me, not for me, for many people, I think that this is going to be very good for Google Stadia. And here's why.
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be a lot of people out there who are just going to refuse to try Google Stadia.
Yep.
Because they're like, well, it's all laggy and stuff. I'm not going to bother. But then they're going to have Xbox Game Pass Ultimate, and they're going to be like, well, I'm going to try this cloud streaming thing. Oh,
Right.
there's no lag.
It
Okay,
works well.
first off, I know that there's lag, but there's not
Yeah.
there's not enough lag to make a deal. So, there's no lag. I can actually play this. Well, I wonder if Stadia is the same way. Maybe all the things that everybody was saying about playing games in the cloud was nonsense. So I don't know. We'll see. I think that this could have a halo effect, no pun intended, for Google Stadia as well.
Yeah, I fully agree with you. The one thing is that xCloud currently is very low resolution. So if you want the best, if you want 4K 60 with HDR, really the only place that you're going to be able to do that right now is on Stadia. So there's a good chance that Stadia games are going to look better for the foreseeable future. But yeah, if I could play all the next gen Xbox games on my PC through cloud streaming, don't have to download anything, then I could move over to my tablet and then move over to my phone and not have to buy a $600 device for my TV. The next generation of gaming is looking very interesting to me.
Yeah, and the last thing that I want to say before we get out of here, this went really long. The last thing that I want to say before we get out of here is that there's going to be people who are like, well, Stadia's dead, blah, blah, blah. And what I will say to them is there is room in the market for both of these. They're doing things very differently, and I think that that's a very good thing. And the thing to remember with Stadia is that you don't have to buy anything. You just buy the games. With Xbox Game Pass Ultimate, you have to subscribe to a thing. And
That's right.
that is something that will push some people away. And it may push people towards Stadia where you don't have to have a subscription. I do think that Xbox needs to do something where there's no subscription needed in order to try their stuff. Does that make sense?
Sure. Yeah. Having a 30-day trial or a 7-day trial or something, just to test it out to see if it works in your house. That would be a great thing to do. But there's also a lot of people out there that converted their Games Pass Ultimate account with like three years of things for $1. That's what I did.
Yeah.
I loaded up on Xbox Live and converted it for $1. I think my Games Pass expires in like May of 2022, so I still have a year and a half of free. Well, not free because I've already paid for it, but without having to give Microsoft more money, access to the service. So I'm going to have over a year of access to xCloud for the Games Pass games, which is fantastic. So yeah, a lot can happen in 18 months to see kind of where the industry goes. Is Sony going to have a response to this? Is Google going to change the way their service runs? Is Microsoft going to change the way their service runs? Cloud gaming just got really interesting with just one blog post from Microsoft.
Absolutely. All right, everybody. We'll see you next time. Thanks, Lloyd.
Yeah. See you later, Bill.